Joe Biden, President of the United States, refers to Donald Trump as a sick fuck when he's in private. And do you know what? That's exactly what Donald Trump is. What happened in American politics this week? Let's look back. 3 American soldiers were killed in action in a tiny corner of Jordan at an American base that most Americans have never heard of, called Tower 22. Dozens of American soldiers were injured when an Iranian missile slammed into their base, launched by Iranian proxies. It is said, according to government sources, that President Biden has decided on what the retaliation will be. The administration's goal is to restore deterrence without escalating the Middle East conflict into an open regional war involving direct engagement between Iran and the United States. So apparently the decision has been made to strike back at the Iranian proxies, including Iranian soldiers operating in Syria and Iraq. But we will not target Iranians in Iran. The world is at a dangerous hour, as Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin pointed out, and the United States government has made clear it will not tolerate attacks on American military personnel by Iran, Iranian proxies, or anyone else across the Middle East. It's important to remember the United States spends over $1 trillion a year on its defense. Iran spends less than $10 billion. Iran should be very careful in provoking the United States, because the United States remains, despite the idiocy of so many of its political candidates, the world's overwhelmingly most powerful nation. It is the most powerful economically, militarily. It is the most powerful entrepreneurially. Nobody wants war, but it is also the lesson of history that weakness is what brings war. Appeasement is what brings war. And this week, the world became more dangerous. One of the senior leaders of the British Army talked about the need for Britons to prepare themselves, possibly for conscription in a war against Russia. Soon, Great Britain will test fire its first nuclear missile in almost 20 years. There have been military skirmishes in the last weeks between Pakistan and China, between India and China, between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and the Balkans remains fraught. All over Europe, NATO politicians are communicating to their citizenry, saying that you must be prepared. The winds of war are blowing in Europe, and there is no story that has greater implications in the United States than that one. Here in America, there is polling that shows that Joe Biden has finally, at long last, passed Donald Trump in some important polls. Why is this happening? There are 2 core reasons. One is the race has become, again, about Donald Trump, and whomever this political campaign is about is the person who's going to lose. And after a long season with the spotlight off of Trump, the race again became about him, his insanity, his malice, his lack of discipline, his foul temper, and the fact that after being convicted of sexually abusing a woman, E. Jean Carroll, and defaming her, he could not stop talking about her. And now he has been sanctioned to the tune of $83 million. The entire country has gotten to see Donald Trump as he truly is: arrogant, small, petty, and believing he is above the law, that it simply does not apply to him, that he can walk in a courtroom and out of a courtroom, that he can disrespect the judge. The entire system that if he loses an election, hell, just burn it all down. And the American people are taking note. And importantly, so is President Biden. And this is an important story. You never really know when you look at a political campaign, do the opponents truly understand one another? Are they able to properly and unemotionally take each other's measure? Or do they become overwhelmed by the competition, by the emotion of it? Well, now we know how Joe Biden thinks about Donald Trump and how he refers to him in the White House, in the private space. Amazingly, the foulest person in American history ever to hold high political office, a man without principles, morals, or restraint, is offended because he found out Joe Biden, President of the United States, properly, accurately, and precisely refers to Donald Trump as a sick fuck when he's in private. And do you know what? That's exactly what Donald Trump is and always has been. He's a liar and he's a con man. Whether it was assaulting women by the dozens, leering at young women, at teen beauty contestants, he is a man unfit beyond any measure of mine to be able to articulate. But what is important is the president understands his opponent. He understands that he's sick. Understanding that will be key to the ferociousness that the Biden campaign will need to unleash on Donald Trump, a man that should be treated without respect, without dignity, without mercy, and without pity until he is defeated and excised like the cancer he is from America's public life. This was also the week where Donald Trump attacked the world's biggest pop star, an American woman of 34 years old named Taylor Swift. The MAGA extremists are aflutter about the possibilities of conspiracies. Vivek Ramaswamy, a crackpot without peer, has suggested the Super Bowl has been fixed and that everything we've watched play out all season long is simply a plot. The Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift relationship isn't real, you see. It's all part of the conspiracy to deny President Trump a second term. And somehow, the next move, whatever it may be, will play out at the halftime show at the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, if you haven't heard from Vivek, have already fixed the game. It's all about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce coming together to oppose Donald Trump. When Vivek Ramaswamy looks at the Super Bowl, that's what he sees. And what you should see is a nut on top of 1,000 more who want political power at a dangerous hour. And that's dangerous for every one of us, our children, our friends, our parents, all of our loved ones who deserve better than the malice, the meanness, the cruelty, and the rancid character of Donald John Trump, who now stands on this Friday at the edge of a court verdict in Manhattan, where he will find out what the accumulated consequences are of a lifetime of fraud and business deception. These were the stories that shaped this week, and the thread that runs through all of them is the danger of extremism, specifically Donald Trump's extremism. It's the type that can start World War III, which, according to a lot of experts, is closer at hand than it has been in decades. Think about that as we head into the weekend. When men like Donald Trump stand at the edge of political power after having held it, there are always consequences. Think about what those might be. Because should he come back to power, they'll just be beginning. Thank you for listening to my political commentary. If you like what you heard today, please also consider subscribing to The Warning daily newsletter on Substack. Our democracy hangs in the balance. The 2024 presidential election is the most consequential in America's history. It's not hyperbole, it's a fact. That is why the mission of The Warning with Steve Schmidt is to help readers orient to the currents that are shaping our times and the unseen forces driving politics that are very rarely discussed on cable news. Please sign up at Steve Schmidt, SteveSchmidt.substack.com. Again, SteveSchmidt.substack.com, or at the link in the show notes section below. Thank you to each and every one of you for listening and watching.